What do you need to know about finance in project management? My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management expert. I help professionals to become successful project managers. Everything I do is based on more than 15 years of experience working in different countries, in different industries, and with different people there. And the topic I'm going to talk about today is, of course, finance. That's a very very critical topic for any type of project. But before I start, make sure you like this video here and share with other people because then you can also learn project management. They also can learn why finance is important for project management. And before I forget, this content here is part of the warm up of the Project Management Summit. The Project Management Summit, it's a free event. I'm going to make 3 classes, everything free, everything online, so you can watch whatever you want there. I'm going to show you how to develop your project management skills. I'm going to give you tools like the project management mastery journey self-assessment there to see where you are, the growth radar there to assess which skills that you need to develop, everything that you need to start developing your skills there, and still you also get a free certificate there. The only thing you need to do is click in the link here and subscribe. Let's talk about finance. First of all, why finance? If I take one step back, what's the ultimate goal of any project there? If you might have been following me for a while, you already know that. The ultimate goal of any project is to deliver value for the organization. So your goal as a project manager is to deliver value. So what you want to understand what's value for your project. You want to lead the team in the direction to achieve this type of value there. So that's for all type of projects. So you can have value as customer satisfaction, as a cost reduction, as selling new products, as complying with a change in the legislation, and so on. So value can mean very different types of things. But why finance is so critical for project management? First, because you need to manage the project budget. I've never seen in my life a project that has no budget, meaning that people can use whatever month, whatever money they need to execute it. But you say, but I don't have a business case. Well, if you have a team working on that one, you have a budget. Why? Because the company is paying salary for the team members to work in that project. So if you work 6 months, maybe you have a budget. If you work for 1 year, you need a bigger budget. If you work for 2 years, you need a bigger budget. So you need to understand what's your budget to make sure that, of course, the work that the company is putting on, so the money, the cost that the company has is being paid off. And it's following according to their expectation. Because imagine that, okay, you have a project to increase, to solve a regulatory problem there. That there was a change in the regulation there, and then the company needs to adapt. So you start work on that one, and then take 1 year, let's say, the project, everything is solved, the regulation is compliant. Then the company check, okay, let's see, we expect that to solve this regulation issue here or this regulation change, we would put 100,000, whatever value. I'm just guessing a number here. And then in the end, you say, oh, but we actually spend $500,000 to be able to meet that. Everybody's going to be surprised, and that's not a good surprise. That would create frustration. Stakeholders might create a lot of questions, and so on. So this is one of the things that you don't want. So you really need to understand what's the budget for your project. Second important part, a lot of projects, they are going to have business case. Let's say the company is creating a new product, a new service. The company is selling houses. The company is creating a new bridge. You always have a business case for those things. And the value that you're going to get for the project in the end is going to be very connected with your business case. Meaning the company is expecting to sell, I don't know, thousands or millions of pieces of a specific product with specific gross margin there, because they are going to make a profit and they are going to pay off the investment there. So you need to understand what's your business case. Those things are critical. What if you do not understand your cost, and what if you don't understand your business case? Basically, you're going to struggle with basic stuff in project management like decision making, and prioritization. How you're going to decide something and prioritize something if you don't understand what's the cost impact or what's the business case impact. So let's say that you are building a house there, and someday you had a dream and you say, oh, I want to have a pool. And you go for the contractor there that you hired to do your house there, and you say, I want to have a pool. And the contractor say, fine, I'm going to do it. And they go and execute the pool. And later on they come, hey, by the way, your pool here costs $50,000. And I have no idea how much a pool will cost. I've never done a pool. So but I guess 50,000, it's a big amount of money to create a pool there. And they're going to say, but that's too expensive. I've never agreed with that. I said, yeah, you wanted it, so I did it. So you need to pay for that. Then you are going to argue, but I've never agreed with the price. And then you can stay like that forever in this analogy. The decision would be much easier for you in this case if you say, I want a pool, and the contractor say, hey, okay, the pool will cost you $50,000. Then what might be your decision? Saying, no, it's too expensive, so I don't want it. By understanding the cost of things and the impact on our business case, it makes easier for you to decide. For example, I've worked in a project and the customer say, I want to change this, and it was a physical product. I want to change these dimensions in the product. I want to do this, and that because I think it will look nicer. What I say, okay, let me check and I get back to you, dear customer. Then I say, okay, if you want to do those changes, that's fine. That will cost this amount, and that will cost 3 months extra for the project. Do you want to do that? And they say, no, that's too expensive, and we don't have time for that. It facilitates decision making and prioritization. If you go for a company, another example, if you have a decision to take into your project, sometimes people keep discussing stuff, struggling. You say, okay, how much does it cost? And people say, that costs whatever you're doing there. Sometimes there's big decisions, sometimes there's small decisions. But for example, in one of the projects that I'm working on, in one of the case, someone say, the cost for that is 25,000 euros, and the cost will happen in 7 years because the production, it was the development part plus the production part there. And I say, okay, the business case for the entire project was more than 300 million euros. So we say $25,000. Yeah, go ahead. That will not make any difference in the business case. Let's not waste time discussing on that. When you put things in perspective, and finance can help you a lot with doing that by understanding the cost and the impact in your business case, it makes it easier for you to decide. What other type of decision say, hey, if you take this decision here, it's going to cost you $5 million. Then it's like, okay, so I cannot decide by myself. I need to involve my director, depending on how the structure of the company that you are going for. You need to involve maybe a vice president or maybe even the CEO, depending on what you're talking about. Say this is not a decision that you can make by yourself in the environment of your project. So once you understand once you understand finance and the business case, it will help you tremendously in decision making and prioritization. And how you can decide and you can prioritize if you do not understand that. So you are going to guess work. Maybe you create a big problem for the company. Maybe you take a decision that's not even yours or your team to take, just because you do not understand finance. And in the end, remember, the goal is to deliver value for the project. If your value is tied up with a business case, how you are going to manage the value that you are going to deliver if you are not understanding and following the business case? And this is a problem that a lot of people have. I've seen even senior project managers, and senior, in my perspective, would be between brackets there. They do not understand finance, although they have many years of experience, so they cannot come up with simple understanding on business case. So this is why finance is so important for you. And that's one of the things why I included in my programs, because I started to work with project management in 2009. And then I start to have working as planning and control, and there I start to face questions on finance. Oh, budget, revenue, costs, gross margin, operating margin, net present value. I did not know what were those things. And I'm talking about, I'm an engineer, so I like numbers. So I know math. I'm not that I'm a mathematician, but I have basic math knowledge there. And although I knew how to make calculations there, I say, okay, I do not understand those concepts, so I struggled. I remember that in my first project manager position there, I would go for monthly reviews with directors there, and one of the things they would ask about the project is accounts receivable. And for me, I would look, okay, what those people are talking about accounts receivable? What the hell is that? It was more than 1 year before I figured out what was an account receivable. And there are other concepts, of course, that you need to understand: net present value, internal rate of return, gross margin, capex, capital expenditures, opex, operation expenses. There. Why? Because all those things are interconnected. So in the end, your business case is a composition of what you see in an income statement, or also you're going to see companies talking about P&L, profit and losses. There, it's a composition of a balance sheet, movements on the on balance sheet, and it's also a composition of a cash flow statement. If you say I want to see what those things are, just open Google, select a company, a public company there, a company that has stocks shared, stocks negotiated in the market there. For example, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, all those companies, they are public companies. They have their stocks negotiated in the stock market there. Why I'm saying that? Because those companies are obligated by law to share their income statement or profit and losses, to share their balance sheet statement and their cash flow statement there. Those financial statements, those three, those are the ones that are going to compose a business case. So that's in the end what you're going to need to understand. And not only for your project, but think about that. You want to grow let's assume that you want to grow in your career, right? So at some point you want to start work with project management, you want to be a project manager, then you want to be a manager, then you want to be a supervisor or a director or a CEO of a company. You need to understand finance because you are going to need to understand to see what are the results that the company get. If you are a manager, for example, usually you need to manage the budget of your area there. All the areas they have a budget. A lot of times those budgets are connected with key performance indicators there. You are going to be in reviews to assess the company performance there, where they say, okay, how things are going. How are our sales? How are our margins? What's our cash position? How things are going? So this is a basic knowledge that you're going to need to have, not only to manage your projects, but also to evolve into your career. So just thinking about that, if you don't know finance, you're going to be left out. And I even see in my experience there, I was working to a company and I had a colleague, another project manager. We were working in programs, but our programs, they had some synergies there because we share the same manufacturing line there. And at some point, we had to discuss the business case, or I started a discussion with about the business case with the financial director there. And I remember this room that we went to the European financial director there. We went inside of his room. Then we were standing in a high table there, talking about the business case. And I was with my computer and I was talking with him back and forth. And I remember the other project manager, he was just looking like that, like no clue what was going on there. What's the impact on that? First, he was left out of all the financial decisions for his project, so he was completely left out on part of the critical decision making and prioritization of his own project because he did not understood all the discussions going on there. And more important, every time that he needs to buy something, this financial director had to approve it, and he would ask a lot of questions from him because he wants to know, okay, what I'm approved, is it on budget or not? Is it considered or not? What's the impact of it in the project? And the reasons why he was asking so many questions that he figured based on those meetings that we had, this project manager had no clue on the business case, on the cost of the project, on the budget of the project, and so on. So what he was trying to put pressure to see if he was sure in whatever he was approving there. So you can imagine that his approval process took much longer. Because in my case, for my projects, after we worked together, we had meetings, and all those meetings we had back and forth talking about business case finance. Every time that he would see, oh, you approve it, so I'm good with that. I trust what you're doing there. If you understand how, if you understand finance, how to manage a cost, how to manage your business case, you also are going to develop trust with people. People is going to trust you because they say, okay, you know what you're doing there. And that will facilitate your life into the project. Because I can tell you, if you have a very important stakeholder like the finance director there that don't trust you, you are going to get much more questions, much more explanations, requests for extra reports, and so on. So that will make your life easier. Don't forget finance is there. And what's the challenge there? And I told you that in the beginning of my career, I did not know a lot of finance. And I can tell you, I've been doing a lot of project management trainings to my career. And there's nothing more specific talking about finance in those project management trainings. So, for example, I have the certification project management professional from PMI. That's the most known certification worldwide. There they talk about cost management and they use the earned value management there. And they say, okay, if you have this value here, that's your actual cost, how much is how your budget is going to end. But they do not teach. They talk about the earned value management, but they do not teach how to do that in your day to day, how you're going to get a report, where you're going to get the information. And of course, you have the exercise, but the exercise, even the PMP, they're theoretical, right? You get a number and say your project is on budget or not, based on a key performance indicator. But how you calculate this key performance indicator, they do not teach you that. And that's exactly the reason why I add finance in my development program for project management. Because then I teach the step by steps how to create a cost, how to create a budget, how you create a business case, and how you assess a business case. So we do step by step because I know this is a blind spot of a lot of project managers and a lot of people struggle with that. But here's a positive thing for you. If you know, that can be a competitive advantage on your career. Because that's a competitive advantage for me. Because I go to a company, I can start talking about finance in the same level as the other project managers or the manager or the directors there. And they really gain confidence. Okay, this person really know what they're doing here. You look for what's going on there. That will help tremendously into your career. So to give you some direction there, first you need to understand what are the three basic financial statements that I mentioned to you: income statement or P&L, profit and losses. You need to understand what's a balance sheet, and you need to understand what's a cash flow statement. Those three will compose what's called your business case. You need to understand what's an interest rate and why those interest rates exist. Mainly, if you're talking about a company, what's a weighted average cost of capital there? What's a WACC? That's the acronym that they use. You need to understand what's a net present value and what's a use for. You need to understand what's internal rate of return, what's capex, what kind of investments the company needs to do, and you need to see how those things work into a business case. So if you're wondering to where you're going to start to understanding the time value of the money, understanding what's an MPV, and about the three finance statement that I mentioned on. If you're interested in that, I have also free content teaching you those details. Just send me a message. I'm going to look for the link for the content I can send to you, or you can send me, you can write in the comments here, or send me a direct message on Instagram. But it's very important that you start. Don't forget to like here this video because also that helps me to understand the value that it has for you. And don't forget to subscribe for the Project Management Summit. There I'm going to teach you the next steps to continue to develop your skills and your project management career there. Everything is free. So see you there. Thank you. Bye.